What's up, everyone? Welcome to this episode of Becoming the 1% Podcast. My guest today is Jarrod, the crazy trainer. Going to talk about a lot of different stuff. Going to talk about the key startup phase of an entrepreneur, the different mindsets that it takes once you reach your success. As a gym owner, a lot of us going through the transition from owning a building toward online space, online training, becoming self-independent without literally any overhead. That's a big part of this episode. I'll also talk, of course, about training, the different methodologies of biomechanics, what Jarrod has done to implement his new method, and what he's doing now today for coaches and athletes. Enjoy. This episode of Becoming the 1% Podcast. Entrepreneur.
We got some really big things coming.
You have to have the willingness.
It's an A or B.
Try and use it as a tool.
Define who I am.
This is phenomenal.
On details make up a person. It's what we believe in the industry.
Jarrod, welcome in.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming in, buddy.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, in from Austin.
Yes, sir.
Nice. Just for this?
Just for this.
Yeah.
I came on Wednesday because I was like, I might as well see this city a little bit.
Heck
Explore.
yeah. What do you think? You like it so far?
So beautiful.
Yeah.
There's a lot of beautiful people.
Uh-huh.
Everywhere you look is like a postcard with all the mountains. Every drive is like, oh, that 30-minute drive just flew by.
Yeah.
This is beautiful.
It's a grid. Everything's fast.
Food, great. There's a lot of Mexican culture here too. In Austin, there's a lot of that as well. So good food.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my experience so far.
That's awesome.
I know some good people here.
Yeah. You know, it's you said Eric, right?
Yep.
And he's a kettlebell coach as well.
He's a kettlebell coach. He's a great entrepreneur. He's a good human. He's
so
authentic.
cool. Yeah, I can't wait to meet him too.
Mm-hmm.
That's
We're gonna
great,
have fun.
man. And I mean, you really couldn't have picked a better time to come. It's literally beautiful, perfect. The weather, and we all, anyone who's local knows you got to embrace
I
this.
was
I was
different
gonna
from
say
all of you.
his story would be very different if it came in like August or September.
Even like 2 weeks from now, if it's probably, this is probably going to evaporate in the next 30 days.
I'm
Like,
happy
we're gonna-
I came at this time.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So much to get into. I got so many questions. Just I've dove into your page for a while now, actually. I feel like I've been following you for over a year. What got you started? First off, let's just back up all the way back to the beginning of fitness. What got you into this industry to begin with? Why even go into fitness?
Great question. I think like most of us, I was an athlete growing up. I played basketball from 5 to probably 17 pretty competitively. And so after high school, what's next for us, right? I'm not going to be a professional potentially. So I just went to school, gained a lot of weight, didn't really know I was going into those gen eds the first time, or just kind of finding my major.
Mm-hmm.
I took one health and wellness class, and that shifted a lot of things for me because I realized I could have control over something for the first time in my life. I could change my anatomy, I could lose weight, I could modify my structure, and that pushed me into some interest. Then my family is really into security. No one's really an entrepreneur. We don't have much of that in my family. So everyone was pushing physical therapy. And so I studied physical therapy in my gen eds. Like that was my goal for the next few years, was to do that. But I wouldn't say I was really passionate about fitness until about the age of 20. And I lost a good 30, 40 pounds and realized like, oh, I can change today. Like any person can change their behavior when they want to. But as we said earlier, it's going to take years to keep the transformation. And so that first time I lost a lot of weight, I felt so confident. My abs, woman, everything's going in those directions with my ego. And a few months later, probably 6 months later, I had some hard situations where I didn't technically know how to emotionally regulate, and my body is a representation of my lack of the lack of those abilities to regulate, and I inflamed myself again. I gained weight over like 2 months. I gained all the weight back. It was ridiculous.
Wow.
And so I'm getting my major in kinesiology at the time. I just lost a lot of weight. I gained it back. And then I'm sitting with this understanding of, why did I just go backwards? And how was I not able to catch this fast? And so the second time I dove back into my fitness transformation, it was all about the love for me. It wasn't about results coming from women. It wasn't about people are going to like me more. It was not about my body in the mirror. It was the person who got that body originally that I liked a lot. He didn't actually receive it. He just liked the way it looked. He didn't like the way it felt and functioned and the confidence that came with it. And so the second time I went into that journey, I went in with a whole different perspective. And it took me 2 months to shed all the weight off. And I haven't gained something significant like that in 10 years now.
You bring up an interesting point, highlighting the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic value as pertaining to fitness. What do you see as the difference between someone training for extrinsic or the approval of others as opposed to somebody training for the approval that they get for themselves?
I think it's healthy in the beginning for most of us. Like, I needed that to start. My ego led me into this journey. I wanted to look a certain way. I just don't think it's sustainable long term, right? Which is what we just talked about with intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. I didn't really have the intrinsic side. And so I gained that weight back.
And oftentimes if you're doing it, the way to answer that, I love the way you just did. It's perfect because whatever it is, intrinsic or extrinsic, if you are someone who's not training, get training. Whatever your goal is, do it. But it's important to realize if you are somebody who recognizes early on, hey, I'm doing this because I want to get a girlfriend.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. That's fine. That's, again, whatever gets you in there, go for it. But, hey, one day you're probably going to get that girlfriend. What are you going to do then? Like, if that is truly your only, anyone training for someone else's approval or someone else's commodity on the sexual market or any of that type of stuff, those are attainable goals. What are you going to do? What would you say to somebody who's sort of stuck in that paradigm where maybe they're between those two situations? How do you transition from extrinsic approval to now intrinsic approval?
I think a part of it is going through some shit. Like, you have to eat shit in life. You have to take some steps back to take bigger steps forward. And so I needed those situations in my life where at the time I had been arrested and I didn't have money anymore all of a sudden overnight. I was couch surfing for a month. I chose to not invest back in myself. I didn't have much money. So those terrible negative times that led to a victim mindset for like 6 months, and me getting out of that mindset is what led to the intrinsic motivation. So I had to go through the ego side first before I could really make it a lifestyle and a core of who I am as a person. So I believe a big part of it is just life situation. And if life isn't going to push you like that, you better find stress. That's training. And if you can train in such a stressful way, you're going to grow in other ways. So I think if it's not life that slaps you in the face, make sure you're slapping yourself in the face with training.
It's a very, very interesting point because if you really think about stress, it's almost always highlighted in a negative way. People associate stress with, oh, my cortisol levels are going to be up. I'm going to have a really tough time during the day. I can't sleep, whatever it is. But learning how to manage stress, because stress probably isn't going anywhere. It's going to be a part of your life for the rest of your time on Earth. Applying your own intermittent stress in the form of training in the gym on your own, controlled, is probably a healthier way to adapt and get used to the feeling of stress rather than just letting stress happen to you on its own as life goes on.
Correct.
You'd agree with that?
100%. We were talking about it earlier. I'm not here to be a dead fish. I don't want to just go where the waves take me for the rest of my life. That's no leadership. That's no ownership.
You mentioned earlier that you were the first person in your family to go the entrepreneur route. What was the backlash, if any, from family members when you told them, hey, I'm not going to take a 9-to-5. I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to start my Instagram. I'm going to be a fitness coach. What was the response? I know especially from family members, that can be really hard.
It was similar, just as if a lifestyle of getting into fitness when your whole family's not into fitness, and I'm taking off a piece of cheese of my burger or half a bun, and they're all making fun of me. Like, that was a similar thought process there with them, looking back at it. And now that I said that, I'm gonna restate this. My father is actually an entrepreneur. It took him a while to get into that journey, but he did become an entrepreneur, and we didn't have such a close relationship for a majority of my life until adulthood, until I became an entrepreneur, because he was the first one to really receive me properly. He would support me, not necessarily with money, but with words. He had belief, where when I first told my family, hey, I don't want to be a physical therapist, the more I'm sitting in these clinics and I'm seeing that they're only doing knee extensions for a knee replacement, and I know the hamstring, like, I barely knew anything back then, but I know the hamstring is the other side of that, and they're not even training it. The values weren't lining up with me. And so when I told my mom and my sister, they're very protective. I'm the young child. I mean, I'm the youngest. I'm the only boy, the man. And so they were very, like, I was very influenced by them for most of my life. I would listen to their scarcity mindset, their limited beliefs would impact me. I would allow that voice to take over. So when I first told them, it was a lot of backlash. It wasn't any belief. Jarrod, this isn't sustainable. You're not going to be successful. You're not going to be able to make any money. You're going to be broke. In 5 years, you're going to have to go back to school. So as soon as I decided that, I didn't have really much support from them, even though not in the ways that I would have loved, right? Because all of that backlash and defense is love. And I realize that now as I'm older.
Sure.
But at the time, it was not what I wanted to hear. It didn't help me at all. But at the same time, it did give me a little bit of that, what is that, chip on the shoulder? Like, I can do that. I will show you and myself together. I can do this.
It seems like every time I open the screen and go to social media, if there's somebody who's talking about a startup or what it takes to be in a startup, they're talking about the voices of people who, the naysayers, the people who are going to be, and oftentimes this influence, we've all heard it. The influence would be like, oh, well, cut those people out of your life. If you got negative people, just cut them out. Get rid of them.
Yeah.
Well, that's not always
It's not
doable.
reality.
It's not reality.
Yeah.
A lot of times those people are your friends and family. And like you said, even if they are, speaking in a not so positive way, they're doing it from a place of love. Having gone through exactly what it is you're describing, you're in a unique position to speak on this. How do you keep those people in your life, but not let their words impact you and still go the route of an entrepreneur?
I think the answer to that is compartmentalizing. My mom is my mom, and me seeing her is just that. Sharing with her, like, this is your role in my life, as like where I'm at as a man. It's really just a lot of communication, and for the person who knows more on some form of awareness, emotionally, potentially, it's our job to lead. It's not my job to call my mom or sister on behaviors that they've had for 20, 30, 40 years and try to change them. I'm aware enough to know that when my mom yells at me at the time and she's raising her voice and she's not breathing, that she's stressed because she loves the fuck out of me. So instead of me being like, why are you yelling at me? And I'm yelling back. I used to have that culture where I would just immediately respond with my nervous system right back to hers. But there was a moment where I learned about breath work, not this whole spiritual breath work, just proper diaphragm breathing to the back ribs. And that day, I got so tapped into my breath and my heart rate that when she had responded with that defensiveness, my heart rate went up. I felt it, and I was like, I can let her rant and just listen. And
You're a married man?
I will no. I will hear
This
her.
is going to come in handy.
I will hear her properly. Like, she won't hear herself. She's too emotional. So one of us has to be logical here. And I love my mom and my sister. They're very strong women, but they're women. They're more emotional. And so once I started to get out of that emotional state at 21, it's probably like, because when I opened my gym was really when I started to tap into that energy as a man and as I'm a leader, and it's my voice first, and I hear you, but I don't have to listen to you. And that was a conversation that it also took time for myself to have with myself and to have with them. And now it's about just, if I can guide the conversation to not make it, escalate, that's my job. It's not their job.
Sure.
I have that power. It's leadership.
Yeah. Outstanding. Has that conversation shifted? You've mentioned that you've had success with your platforms. You've had a gym that you've owned. We talked about it, more than 10 years now in the industry.
Yeah.
Is this still something you have to sort of rub up against? Is there critiques of your decisions, or has everybody kind of just calmed down and accepted everybody for what they're doing?
That's where we're at for the
That's
most
where you're
part.
at.
Yeah. The belief is there with them.
Perfect.
They've studied, they see the reps. I'm consistent.
Yeah.
I've made it happen. I didn't ask. I love my family. We don't have money to just throw each other. So it's not like I needed handouts, and I proved that I could sustain, and now it's thriving, not just sustaining and surviving.
Amen. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to ask, looking through the lens as an entrepreneur, what has been the biggest challenge for you?
It's a good question.
Biggest challenge for me as an entrepreneur, listening to my own voice. That's the biggest challenge, is knowing yourself. Like, your business is a representation of who you are.
Not listening to your voice enough, or needing to listen to it more?
Needing to listen to it more.
Okay.
Because when I grow up, and my mom and my sister are my biggest influences, and I don't know how to be my own version yet without them. Those are my voices. Those are the naysayers. Like, I'm used to that.
Yeah.
And so learning to listen to my own voice and my own belief, instead of like, oh, my sister says this, that's great, I say this. And it took a while for me to separate. I was about 24 is when I opened my gym. 25. Around then is when I really started to tap into that.
It's really a big part of what I think becoming a man, or I'll just say becoming an adult is. And it's why I think a lot of times people leapfrog from one external voice to another. They go from their mom's house to maybe their boyfriend's house to their husband's house to their, like, anything like that. There are people on all sides of the aisle, not just entrepreneurs, that will go through life and never establish their own independent internal monologue. It's always the voice of someone else. And for me, I mean, it's like the voice of my dad. I hear my father's voice anytime I'm, and 9 times out of 10, if I hear it, he's probably right and I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing. And so to me, it helps to have that correction. But I think it is really important to find that internal voice and be able to have conversations with yourself or with the person that like you for your mom and your sister, have conversations with them all in your head, but be able to say no. Even if this is all an internal conversation, but be able to have that conversation with yourself. That's a big part of growing up.
The biggest thing I said earlier was like, I hear you now. I don't have to listen to you because I listen to me. And again, coming back to finding my own voice, like that's been the biggest lesson as an entrepreneur and continues to be, because I owned my gym. I closed it down. I didn't have a route. I just felt what was next. And I felt the truth of what I need to do next. And that was listening to my own voice. Like moving from Orlando to Austin was a giant leap. I had 4 years of a gym, 7 years of my whole career in Orlando. I had regular clients. I'm sure you know this, for 8 years, 7 years. That's cash flow, baby. I don't got to think. I can just sustain. Well, that was a big part of why I left. I knew it was time. I was like, I need to go get really uncomfortable again to go to Austin, Texas.
And you transitioned from brick and mortar, in-person clients, all the steady cash flow, everything that comes with a real business, is your business now entirely mobile-based coaching?
I'm a hybrid.
You're all over the place.
I'm a hybrid.
But regardless, you took it, you went to Austin, you ended up at On It. Good choice, by the way. It's a great place.
Grateful that they allowed me to operate my business there.
They're amazing.
They still do,
Speak a little bit more to that, because I think there are a lot of, because what you are, a hybrid's a good way to put it. You're an influencer, but you're a businessman. You've done both, and you've done both sides. It's not like you've recorded yourself putting on makeup one day and now you're an influencer. You actually owned a business.
We lead.
Yeah.
Leaders are influencers. Real influencers are real leaders.
Perfect. The transition from brick and mortar to doing this hybrid, was that obviously difficult? Speak to that a bit.
Oh, the identity shift. That was the hardest thing. I'm a gym owner. Now I'm not. What the fuck am I? I'm just a coach now? I'm just a trainer? So just that alone, letting go of the gym and that transition of identity, of value, of as a man, as a being, like, what am I here to do? I'm not doing enough. I don't have the container, the space to have a temple for people. So just getting over that mentality and realizing, no. Your online version is leading and influencing and helping and guiding. That is a container. So that transition of, okay, I'm not this center being, like the rabbi at the temple or the priest at the church and all my people come to see me and I save space for them. Like, nah. So just that alone was pretty big, that identity shift from gym owner to just, I'm a normal trainer again. I'm just the crazy trainer. And I think, can you rephrase your question one more time, Brandon? That'll help me tap back in.
You're doing it beautifully. I'm speaking to the difference and the transition from, because I'm asking this mainly, I mean, for me, because I'm somebody who, I have my temple. My people come to me. I'm so comfortable here. This is home and they're comfortable here. If I were to cut the cord on this, take the show on the road and go entirely online and move, that to me would be incredibly uncomfortable. So I am, from my curious mind, asking, what did you do to make that transition?
This helps me a lot, not to bring it back to me. Thank you so much.
For
repeating that. So the identity shift from the gym owner to the trainer was a big thing. Me realizing, like, I'm still helping a lot of people, even if it's not in my face. I'm still a person of value. Moving to Austin, I had 3 of my clients out of like 20 stay with me online, and so I went. I was making like $1,500, like $2,000 when I first got to Austin. Really scary position to be. I don't have my online business yet at the time. Like my cash flow isn't really running from programs and that. It's really from my servicing. I'm a proud biomechanic. I'm a technician. I'm not just an influencer and a trainer. And that's another big role in my life. So moving to On It took some time for the community to really trust me and to realize, like, hey, I'm not just this dude who throws kettlebells and stuff. I like healing. I like showing you how to heal. I like sharing with you how to feel every part of your being and fiber. So tapping back into my trainer and my biomechanic in person became more of a powerful move for me instead of like, I'm just a gym owner. I own the business. I'm not thinking from all those hats anymore. I can dive in on just the coach,
Just
the
coaching.
biomechanic. And it's been very freeing. I feel like there's a lot less like, I guess having the gym felt like having a family, you know, having people who depend on you, and you're tied down in that sense. You can't be as free to go explore and travel, right? It's a little harder to do that, at least for my experience. at
Oh,
the time,
100%.
Because I was the gym, right? I'm the person that they expect to see. And if I'm not there for 2 months at a time, is it going to last? Not really. So it was just a big risk. It was scary. And as soon as I got to Austin, everything went to shit. It was the worst, like the worst things that could happen happened. And it allowed me to remember the versions of me that I've been before, where I've had no money before. I've couch surfed before. I'm a lot older and smarter now. I know how to regulate. I'll be all right. I'll figure this out in the next 2-3 months. I don't have to go home. I'm not going to fucking cry and go back and say this isn't work. Like, no. I know how to work and grind. So it was a scary transition. You know, the identity shifts. I'm starting back from clients again. I really deep dove into, I'm going to offer one-on-one coaching online too. That became a big cash flow for me. Everyone around the country was like, if I can train with this guy and learn some of his biomechanics, some of the science of what's going on, I realized like, oh, that's high value. So I started to do more one-on-one coaching online, which is still servicing.
Yeah.
So I got to a point probably 2 months into On It or Austin where
Which was how long ago from today?
Almost a year. I moved there May the 4th almost.
Oh, May the 4th be with
I
you.
made it on
Good
purpose,
job,
bro.
man. Perfect day
I
to
was
do
like,
that.
it's May the 3rd. I officially moved in May the 4th. But that
So you got 1 year under your belt doing this though.
Yeah.
And it's going good. I assume
best
it's
has ever been.
That's awesome.
I'm the most successful version of me I've ever experienced right now.
Congrats. That's awesome.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
That's outstanding, man. Yeah, it's a fascinating story, especially from where I'm sitting right here. I'm trying to take my mind into that of the audience and try to ask questions for them, but a lot of these come from me just because it's very true. Once you reach a point where you've established yourself in your temple, you've got your people, you've got your business is thriving, you're often faced with a difficult decision. Now I'm almost not saturated by my success, but I'm stuck. I'm sort of capped.
How do you scale?
How do I scale from here? And from that position, you have to learn, as you said. I mean, for me, my option was I wanted to delegate. I wanted to bring in other people with new ideas that really didn't have that much to do with me, but that we could kind of partner up and figure out a way to collaborate. That to me was my way to expand beyond the walls of this place. But it is a really scary decision for people to make either way, whether they do it the way I did it or the way you do it.
It's still investment.
It's investment. You have to be willing to be hands off.
Yep.
And with a lot of people, that's near impossible. I mean, anyone who's ever worked at, around, or under a micromanager will attest to this. They cannot let go. They cannot let you make decisions. They are so uncomfortable giving you the reins in any way that they are impossible to work with.
Yep.
To me, that always... Because I had early on in my career, I had been around somebody who was like that. I never, ever wanted to be that.
Awesome.
So turning that around and being like, no, hey, look, you do it. You know what you're doing. I'm just here. You let me know when you need me. Everything else is on you. That to me came a lot more naturally, I think, than it would have if I had been a different type of personality.
I can relate to that.
Yeah, it's important. And a lot of times I think people don't make either one of those decisions. They don't upend their gym, go model, and hey, there's a lot more money to be made on the online space. There just is. And there's a lot more influence to be had, a lot more people you can help. But it's terrifying. You got to what? You got to go yourself. You got to pay your own way. You got to couch surf. That's a terrifying proposition. And same with relinquishing control over a percentage of your business or a percentage of your people. Both of those are tough to do. But I think it's important to remember that if you pull it off, you get a reward. You get something, you get 10x the amount you were making before. As I said, you've probably got more eyes on your brand, more people you can work with.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's obviously
And I'm
been your
living more
expense.
life. I'm living a lot more life.
So more, like you said, there's more freedom.
Freedom. Yeah. I can do a lot more. Like, this is the first trip I've traveled and I was like, I can rent a car. Sure.
Yeah.
Why am I thinking about that so much?
Yeah.
I always thought about that. And I didn't give myself that opportunity. Getting an Airbnb, I would have to find different, just the worst of the situation. So this is the first year where I'm like, damn, this is a nice space to be. I deserve to be at this space. You know, I owned the gym and I didn't see much of that profit because I cared a lot about, I wasn't a good owner in that sense, right? I cared a lot about everybody else making money, the other trainers doing well, the clients having a rate that was fair for them, even though they're doing fine, they're financially fine.
Yeah.
And I'm over here cutting myself over and over again and bleeding, and paying it back. So being at this point, again, that was all my fault. I don't blame. I needed all that to happen to be at this point where I'm that light and I have a lot more abundance because I put me first now.
Yeah.
And I used to put everybody else, I think, first when I owned the gym.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because someone could find themselves in either one of those situations and run into trouble. You could be somebody who, especially I think in a startup, you have to be willing to put yourself last. If it's a true startup, that's the problem is people, because if someone stays in that mindset for too long where they only care about others, like you said, they'll get burnt out. They won't make any money and you'll bleed. But if you go into a business venture thinking, okay, well, all right, I'm number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Everybody else can figure out what they do and if my employees make money, that's fine. But I got to be the way. Most likely, you're not going to make it out of startup phase because that's just too rocky. That's not an equation that typically works. How did you find yourself in this new venture? Was it almost immediately a shift in your mindset to where you, because there's obviously less overhead, no people around you, you could do something that you knew would optimize you and optimize the money and the success that you would have right out of the gate? Was that ultimately what drew you to being an online trainer?
Part of it, and I didn't want any boundaries anymore. Just, if I want to go see my mom in South Florida, I want to go. I don't want to think about it. If I want to go hang out with my family, I don't want it to be, it's a money thing. If I want them to come to see me, I want to be able to help them. I want to be someone who, the version of me that was young, owning the gym, that would buy the dinners, that would buy the drinks, that would give, was a version I didn't earn yet. And I want to be that version, to provide freedom and for myself, but the experiences, the relationships, no conditions. I don't want conditions in my friendships. There's no tit for tat if I'm good.
Yeah.
We're fine.
Yeah.
I feel your energy, I'll know.
Yeah.
And I want to have more control, I guess, in that sense, but I really just want to help a lot more people. And I think that money is something that makes people more of who they are, just like drugs. And I feel like I'm a pretty solid guy, and I would just do what I used to do in the past before I bleed. And now I'm smarter than that. If I was to acquire a lot more, I know how to regulate it and who to share it with, versus 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I was around people that weren't really my people. I wasn't listening to my nervous system, and I would ignore things. Versus if I was very successful back then, I would have been sharing it with people who didn't really value it. Coming into this home, we talked about it. I love this place. You knew it as soon as you saw my face. I can't hide it. I'll receive it all the way. And that's a passion exchange that we get to share with each other for the time I'm here, at least.
Yeah.
I only want to be around that. And so getting more financially successful has been the biggest goal since closing the gym down. Because if I want to do a gym, it's got to be a passion project. I want to do it for my soul. I don't want to do it for I need to do this. Even being a biomechanic in the next 6 months to a year, my goal is to blow up my brand so much with sponsorships, selling programs, doing workshops, clinics, because I want the freedom. I want to be able to do more, be more, provide more. And I'm ready for that next stage. So
yeah,
boundaries was a big part of my transition moving to Austin. It was a tough lesson, but I realized I didn't have any. I didn't have my own, like, as a person, this is not okay.
Yeah.
These are my boundaries. I'm not cool holding space for people that rip at you over and over again. What is that person? I'm trying to pull their hand up and they have spikes all over it. I can't be doing that anymore. So a big part of the transition and all the crap that happened when I got to Austin really showed me, like, I have no hard boundaries. I'm not taking initiative to take care of myself in these ways that would really maximize my life, which would maximize everyone around me who I love and care about.
Well said.
I think you bring up a good point about having to help yourself before you can help others. And it is a fine line because it can be an extreme, just like you said. Like, I want to make all the money and, like, no one else's opinion matters, or I'm going to be a doormat. Everyone can walk all over me, and I'm going to pay myself last. Yep. And so as an entrepreneur, I think you really have to sit down and find that fine line between the two, because ultimately you can't help other people unless you can help yourself. And you know, it's just like that. You talk about the airplane masks that have oxygen. You know, when they come out, they always tell you to put it on first and then put it on your child, because you're not going to be saving anyone if you're incapacitated and you don't have the ability to do so. So it's a great point.
Absolutely. You've mentioned the term biomechanics several ways. What is the difference, if any, between a biomechanic and a personal trainer?
A biomechanic studies the kinesiology. They understand walking, skeleton, movement, shapes. They're not limited to just like, good job, like being that supporter and giving you a program. This person is watching the way you move. They're watching how you're fluid, how you're not fluid, and they're sharing with you the patterns that are bringing your dysfunctions or inflammation, and now they're helping you unfuck yourself because they're knowledgeable enough to explain something to mechanically position your body in ways that are going to make you successful. Versus a trainer's like, more reps, like, and that's a good, I need that too. Like, trainers are important, but they're not all technicians. And to me, a biomechanic is more of a technician person on, you know, operating on the body. They're seeing it for as a whole, not just a bicep curl. They know that that pain going on here is not just the bicep. There's a leak in the whole chain. And a biomechanic, to me, a proper one, usually somebody who's very passionate about that and is exploring it and learning from other scientists' minds like that.
Absolutely. What are the other scientists' minds that you've learned from in the field of biomechanics? Who would you point to?
You know, this last few years, a big part of my growth, I would say one piece that I first started with was this system called functional patterns. I didn't ever get certified through it. I just saw the locomotive process that was happening through there. I saw the patterns going on. I had a friend that was really into, at the time I had a good friend that was really into that field. They were obsessed with functional patterns. Shared a few lessons with me, and I was able to really explore as a mechanic. I just couldn't wait to, shut up, I'll go. I'll play for 10 hours today. You can go away. I'll go play on my own. And so functional patterns was a small base. And then I got into David Weck, you know, into the coiling. And I was like, okay, this is kind of mingling, same concept.
So I keep hearing his name over and over recently. I think it's because he went on Table Talk. But I know he's had a lot of success with this. What, have you studied his methods?
Yep.
I really haven't.
Yep. So Landmine University, do you know Landmine University?
Yeah.
Landmine stuff we're doing?
Yeah.
So Alex Canellis is the inventor of that system, another influence, but his system has been influenced completely through Weck method, which is all about the coiling, like these processes, forward and tension. So all that process with a landmine is coiling. It comes from David, or at least where, I don't know where it all comes from, right? Who knows? Yeah. But he's the inventor of the Bozu ball. And so, like, in that sense, when you have that much abundance and you're just giving to give, I can tell. You're not here trying to make profit. You're here just trying to share the damn truth. And as soon as I saw his passion for truth, I needed to go out and meet him and see if I could connect with him and learn from him. And he's a scientist. He's a technician. He's crazy, but he's so passionate for life and for.
So you went out and worked with him in person.
I met him. Everyone who I'm talking about, I pretty much went to go meet. So I met up with Alex Canellis. I met up with David Weck. I met up with I can't remember his last name right now, but Eroding Weaknesses, Chris.
Is that his Instagram?
Chris Chamberlain.
Yeah.
Eroding Weakness. I got to learn from him. CJ, his Instagram handle is Movement Explorer Channel. You just had him here.
We just had him, yeah. He's great, man.
I had one day with him where it was 3 or 4 days of me going to California where just all these people just downloaded.
Is that where everybody's at? Is that where Weck's at?
He's in San Luis Obispo, and then Weck is in San Diego. And so I decided when I first went to visit, it was my first, I owned the gym, and I was like, I don't have much money, but fuck it. Like, I know I need to go learn from these people. I know something special will happen. And so I went out there and went to San Luis Obispo and traveled all the way down to San Diego, and I got downloads from CJ and the Gym Gymnazo, and then I went to Pacific Beach Training, and I met up with, you know, Alex Canellis, and the owner at the time was Junior Lioso, and I got introduced to this giant network of smart people, entrepreneurs, high performers, coaches. But those have been, I think, some of my biggest influences. Steel Mace Flow was also important to me. You know, Leo Savage was someone who created that system, Steel Mace Flow.
Oh yeah.
And so taking a cert with him and him in my life for the time he was, and he's still sometimes in my life, but
is he still on it?
No, not right now.
No.
I know he's just working through his human right now. He's figuring out things before he coaches, I think.
Sure.
Or goes hard back into it. But being with him was important. Going to meet Slush Ropes, Bea. She owns Slush Ropes that David Weck loves to promote also. Being
TJ
around her
too.
energy was important for me. Yes, like I know all those patterns now with ropes, maces, juggling, flipping. Like being around those science minds, I would say like David was a big one. Alex Canellis and CJ are probably my biggest influences outside of my own voice that I've learned with it.
It's important to speak to the value of in-person coaching, especially selective in-person coaching, versus, shall we say, traditional educational methods, of which you have both. Because, I mean, you obviously went to PT school. You got to that point. You've had both. What would you say is there's got to be value in both departments and things you don't get from either department. What are those, in your opinion? Traditional versus certification forms of education.
So I got my degree in kinesiology, and hey, go be a personal trainer or whatever it's going to be. No application. It's great looking at it on paper, anatomy and physiology, but now the person is telling me they don't feel their butt cheek. So what does this matter? So, going from the kinesiology degree and then going to LA Fitness and started to be like, this doesn't matter. And nobody cares at all if I say pectoralis major. They don't give a shit. They don't understand. It doesn't matter. So really doing the work was what got me to start understanding, like, the kinesiology was important. It was cool. Gave me a little baseline, but I don't think it was that valuable looking back at it.
Yeah.
It gave me a lot of lessons, right? It brought me to physical therapy internships and put me in that direction. So I know I didn't want to go there. But the biggest thing was doing the reps in person. I know I have 10,000 hours at least of one-on-one training under my belt. And that first year at LA Fitness was a year and a half of 50 to 60 clients. I was doing 40 to 50 hour work weeks. I got so many reps in. I saw so many patterns to be like, you know what? Thanks kinesiology degree, but there's got to be more. There's got to be more. This ain't right. Yeah. There's so much pain everywhere. Like, this can't be good. So for a couple of years, I just did a lot of self-exploration until I started to explore Instagram and put my own out there and see these other people moving fluidly. Yeah. And going to meet them in person is the absolute best way to download information.
Absolutely.
If you have somebody, like, I am a great coach online. I will tell you, I think that I can coach better than almost every coach I know in person. I think my online coaching cues are and it's made me 10 times better in person because now I don't have to touch people if I don't want to. I can just coach them with words.
Sure. And
they'll understand me. I know how to speak like that now. So application has been king. In-person training, spending time with mentors. I don't got to get a certification from everybody. I just need to download principles, and I don't need to be educated with papers and stuff for that.
Yeah.
I need to do the reps.
Especially once you have it. Once you have a kinesiology degree, nobody cares really if you have a certification, but they care about your training method. They care about how they feel when they're done after the first, week, 30 days, 60 days. They want to know, hey, does this person actually know what they are doing? And being able to speak in ways, being able to explain things to a fifth grader is such an undervalued aspect of being a good person in the training environment, because you are almost crippled if you try to speak kinesiology to normal people. They want nothing to do with it. They don't.
I don't want anything to do with it.
No, it's annoying. like
I'm like, shut up, dude. Did I just say that?
I think of that. What was that one? The podcast with Brian Callen and Chris D'Elia, where he starts talking about glycogen, and he's like, "Shut up." He's like, "No one cares about glycogen." It's
like,
true.
You better be wearing a lab coat next time.
That's right. He says, "When
it
I
might
turn
be
around,
0.5% that cares. You know what I mean? It's like 0.2.
The only people that are ever going to care is if you're in this setting. If you're in a podcast setting with, I don't know, if Dr. Mike Israetel's talking to you and you want to talk about biomechanics, you probably need to know some stuff.
There's not that many nerds out there, though. There's only very few.
No, exactly. and even they are going to be like, hey, we can talk shop if we want because we both like it.
Yep.
But we don't need to.
Yep.
It's not going to impact our business in any way or
100%.
make us better trainers. We're just doing it to shoot the shit because we both study it.
Yep.
And it's a real sign of intelligence if you can take something very nuanced like that with a lot of different jargon and being able to simplify it and dumb it down and explain it to someone else in a way that they would understand.
Well, the biggest thing you said about talking to a fifth grader, one of my favorite things about Landmine University and Alex Canellis, if you watch what he does, it's a bunch of elementary school kids doing all the same principles that I'm doing as 31.
I've seen him, yeah.
He's a great coach. That means he's a great coach. And I feel I'm the same. With ropes, mace, I don't care what it is.
You can teach your stuff to a literal fifth grader, you think?
To a fucking 5-year-old.
Yeah.
I really feel like him, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's important. No matter what it is your tenet of training is, and you definitely have a unique style. Holy cow. Is that? Oh my gosh, dude! I hadn't seen that video. That's crazy.
Superhero shit.
It's so explosive. Landmines are so cool. A little off tangent. Landmines are so cool for plyometrics.
Oh,
I
they're fun.
love-
But if you watch like what he does, he doesn't even love the plyometric side because he was all football and wrestling.
This is
Forward
Alex.
intention.
You were
Yeah, so
talking about-
Alex
yeah.
Canales is all about. Well, I play basketball, man. I want to jump.
I want to jump
I
around.
want to do some cool looking stuff.
Yeah. Well, you got to be able to do your own version of everyone, and that's the thing too. If I were to go out and do David's thing, I'm sure I would take a lot out of it and bring it home. But I'm probably going to give it my own spin when I get back here.
Yeah, and you might not use every piece, right? I'm sure you've been around long enough to be like, oh, that's a great system. Let me take 2 principles from that. The other ones, I don't need that.
100%.
That's what I've done with
or I don't
6
like
different
that.
systems pretty much to make my own now.
Yeah. And you have to. That's the problem. If you get pigeonholed into one tenet where you're only doing one thing and you don't move and you're only going like, that's it. This is what I do and I don't do anything else. Yep. You're leaving way too much on the table. You're going to be an incomplete coach and your clients are going to suffer from it. And so are you if you're actually implementing it for yourself.
One of the biggest things I love saying is like bodybuilding is missionary sex of fitness. It's like if you get stuck in just bodybuilding, there's so much out there. You never turn it from the back. Like there's so many other positions to play with. Try a kettlebell, god damn it. Try a landmine, try a mace. So I'm big on fuck your dogmatic principles and thinking only. You can't be stuck there. There's so many other positions to play.
Oh, totally.
And they're more pleasurable sometimes.
And
Any variety in my life.
Variety, exactly. And it also makes your job a lot more fun as a coach if you can pull from a bunch of different styles of training, a bunch of different equipment methods, and just put them all together. I think people find it fun. They find it way
It's
more
playful.
interesting. Yeah,
It's playful.
and it should be. That's important.
It's explorative. It's playful. They don't want to be a D1 athlete. They're not here to be a professional, whatever.
How many
They just wanna feel
miserable D1 athletes do you know? Because I know.
I don't know enough D1 athletes. You probably know way more. But the few that I did know, not the happiest.
Man, and that's. I remember because that was my earliest introduction to this. Not all of them. A lot of them are happy to be there, but for those guys, I don't know, man. A lot of them have that look on their eye like this is just miserable. This is work. I'm here because and look, they're being paid like it's work, so they better friggin' work. But their attitude with this was not, and it's proof when they stop. A lot of professional athletes stop their sport, even if they have a stellar 9-year career in the NFL. They get out and they're done. And it's like,
Where's the intrinsic motivation?
I don't want to ever see a gym again. I don't want to ever. It's like what Michael Jordan said when he was done with his coach, Grover, Tim Grover. You ever read Tim Grover's book?
Nah.
Oh, you should. It's outstanding. Which one is it, Jake? Remind me the
Relentless?
name. Relentless. That's it. Yeah, Tim Grover was Michael Jordan's strength and conditioning coach, worked with him throughout his entire career, and shaped Michael, truly, like literally shaped Michael Jordan into what he was. And the last day of the last game Michael played, he basically looked at his trainer and he says, "Thank you so much for everything you did. I don't ever want to see or hear from you ever again." Oh. and then that was it. Because it was work. It was a work relationship.
And even you know more about this because you've been in that side. I wanted to when I was first getting into kinesiology. I thought I would go into athletics, sports, professional teams, but I saw so many burnt out strength and conditioning coaches when I wanted to be a CSCS.
Yeah.
And I saw it and I was like, I am not going that route. You're miserable, divorced, angry, fat. It's all there. And those are the coaches leading these athletes. Mm-hmm. You're projecting your fucking crap on them. Mm-hmm. And now they're picking up on your bullshit behaviors subconsciously. They're associating the same crap that you are because you're leading the tempo of the whole fucking team. Mm-hmm. So again, it comes back to like coaches. Leaders need to be... We need to do a better job of having a higher standard in the industry. Mm-hmm.
You have to be enthused. Yes, you have to be enthused and happy to be. If you're not happy to be there as the trainer, why would they be happy to be there as the person they're coaching? They're paying for you to be happy to be there. You're not even happy then. It's not good because you're 100% right. A lot of, and I'll tell you right now, you do not want to work with professional athletes. I get asked that question all the time. People are always like, "Oh, so you kind of regress? Like you don't work with pros anymore? You don't do anything?" I'm like, "No, honestly, man, seeing what I saw and how, and I was an intern when I was there, so I was doing the laundry, scrubbing the toilet, doing all that stuff. But I saw they are the most. First of all, they are the most arrogant, pretentious, self-entitled." They are the worst clients you would ever want.
100%.
Who cares if they've got clout? You can get clout all on your own.
100%.
You don't need them to become a successful coach. And working with pro athletes is such a demand. It is so, because you are dealing with a $55 million piece of machinery.
Yeah.
That if anything happens, you're on the line. It's just more tense. They're more tense. You're more tense. It's just tense.
I'll take the people who sucked at PE all day over that all-star. You know, that's all I've really worked with for most of my career, is that
Same.
person who never got picked and they never got to be the athlete. Well, I love being able to tap in with them and share with them that, yeah, you are a fucking athlete. Look at you doing landmines right now. But are you not an athlete? And watching that confidence and how they receive us, that value is 1,000,000 times more impactful for me as a human than, the person who's like, oh, thanks for that little tip, kind of. And they're taking it with like, oh, I didn't even really want to take it from you. I didn't even want to listen to you.
Yeah.
I'd rather work with the person who's ready to step into their athlete. It's way more rewarding for me to work with that person.
1,000,000%. If someone wanted to work with you, where would they start? Where do they go?
Usually they'll reach out to me through Instagram.
Okay.
They'll DM me. I have a website where you can, schedule a time, but I'm very picky with who I work with now.
Good.
I ask that you usually DM me. I'll screen you. 15-minute call. I just want to feel you out as a person. Are you ready to receive my system? Because I'm not going to do what you want. Like, I will. I'll meet you where you are. But right now, where I'm starting to develop my sales, like at this point, I have a system now. And if you're reaching out to me, you're going to follow my system. You're going to listen. And then I will you can date back. You can tell me what you want to.
Perfect.
Right now, I got what you need. I know what you need. You think you know what you want. So right now, the screening is pretty much through DMs. In person, referrals sometimes, but
the Crazy Trainer, all one word, Instagram, send a DM, and just
I might
sort of
work
take
with
it
you.
from there.
Yeah, it just depends. Because right now I just started also April 7th. I start my, I guess I call it a coaches cohort. I just brought on 6 coaches to do a 6-week program with me, because I'm very big on this new system. It's a remix of all the systems I know, but putting it into about a 6-hour process. I feel very confident with it because I do it with my one-on-one clients who were the person who sucked at PE, and now they're moving buttery, beautifully, pain-free, confidently. So now I'm ready to take on coaches and be like, follow this shit for the next 6 weeks. And so that's new for me. I'm really excited because this is the beginning of the crazy method, which is, it's just a bunch of combinations of coiling and FP and all these different systems coming together to share with you that there's all these types of ways to do a thing. Like 3D lunge matrix comes from Gray's Institute, right? I don't know if CJ talked to you about that.
No.
The lunge matrix. But Gray's Institute, I think his name's Alex Gray, is a genius guy. He does rehab. He's really well known in the industry on that. And Gymnazo got a piece of their, like where CJ works, a piece of their education comes from Gray's Institute. Mm-hmm. So even though I got my knowledge from Gymnazo and CJ, I know that really trickles back down to Gray's Institute. Mm-hmm. So now at this point, I'm just teaching in my six-step system all this, which is new for me. To be like, I'm taking on coaches only, not people who just want to get in shape and feel good and confident.
So you can extrapolate and your methods can grow without you doing it. You've got other people coaching it and more people using it.
Yep.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. Thanks for coming in. This is awesome. Such a cool episode.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure,
thanks for
bro.
stopping in.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much for watching that episode of Becoming the 1% podcast. If you like the content and you want to see more of it, hit the like and subscribe. Activate that notification bell as well. We really appreciate it. If you guys want to see more of it, we actually have the Becoming the 1% Instagram, and the podcast is available on Spotify. For our socials, we have Strict Vision Athletics on Instagram. We have it on YouTube, and we have it on TikTok.